Good afternoon to you. I'm Danilo Evangelista, and welcome to our tropical weather outlook for September 21st, 2025. And on today's tropical weather outlook, we're going to be talking about Hurricane Gabrielle. Yes, I say Hurricane Gabrielle. This afternoon, as of 5 p.m. Eastern Time, it is officially strengthened into the second hurricane of the season. And I'll show you here on the satellite loop. It is definitely strengthening, definitely becoming better organized. You can see on the satellite we have these curling convective bands in the center here. Gabrielle definitely organizing more, has a solid inner core now, and it's probably going to continue to strengthen from here on out. And I'll show you with the National Hurricane Center track. It is actually forecast to become a major hurricane briefly by the time we get to Tuesday morning. Might actually become not only our second hurricane, but our second major hurricane of the season in the Atlantic. Something that, if you've been tracking for the last several weeks, almost felt like it has been impossible, given the fact that we've had almost nothing to develop at all in the last several weeks. The Atlantic just so hostile, so much dry air, so much shear, so much tut action, or tropical upper troposphere troughs, keeping the lid on for a really long time in the Atlantic. Looks like that is going to be no longer, and it looks like finally things are starting to come together for more activity to occur in the Atlantic. And I say that with showing the current 5 p.m. or really as of 2 p.m. the overall tropical weather bulletin in the Atlantic. We are no longer now just tracking Gabrielle as a current entity. We have two other areas as of this afternoon to track now. One of them being a area of interest that might track. Well, both of these are going to track into the southwestern Atlantic. And depending on what model you look at, both of these actually have potential to become pretty interesting areas to watch in the next week as they move into the southwestern Atlantic here. But right now, this area in the eastern central Atlantic, which has a 50% chance of development from the National Hurricane Center. This has a more solid chance of developing, and from the ensemble members of certain models, especially the Google AI ensemble that I've seen, are very aggressive that even this might become a pretty decent storm over the next week here in the general vicinity of the Western Atlantic, right just off the east coast of the United States, maybe just north of the islands. We'll have to see, but we now have two other areas of interest, and again, I've been saying that Gabrielle would probably be the start of the Atlantic hurricane season, really beginning to ramp up. The Eastern Pacific, though, is still producing activity. Tropical storm Nardia formed. Again, this is also the latest advisory as of 5 p.m. Eastern time here. Tropical storm Nardia has officially formed in the Pacific. Maximum sustained winds at 40 miles per hour and 1,006 millibars. And this might potentially become another hurricane here in the Eastern Pacific over the next week or so. And it also might be a pretty decently strong storm. And I'll show you that National Hurricane Center track and also some of the models in just a little bit. But let me show you right now a widened view of the entire Atlantic right now. And this just generally gives you an idea of what we are tracking. First off being Hurricane Gabrielle, which is in the central Atlantic or the open Atlantic, just southeast of Bermuda. And yes, this will pass to the east of Bermuda, as I showed you here with the National Hurricane Center track. Luckily, we'll pass to the east of Bermuda. And that's the track of Nardia, which I'll show you, or I'll go in depth more in a little bit. But at least with Gabrielle, this is going to track to the east of Bermuda. So no need to worry about any major impacts, except, as I mentioned yesterday, still keep in mind of the potential swells and rip currents, which will impact Bermuda and also impact pretty much the entire Atlantic for the next several days. And that's a very common feature even with these out-to-sea hurricanes. Even if they don't bring direct impacts to people, they still bring indirect impacts through swells and rip currents, and those do threaten lives as well, as they've done so many times in the past. So please keep in mind of that. And then meanwhile, in the MDR, we have some convection here firing with one of the tropical waves that we're monitoring this afternoon. And I think this convection here is associated with the wave that the National Hurricane Center has marked as a 20% chance of development. And then further to the east here, there's another tropical wave somewhere in here, and that is the wave that the National Hurricane Center has at a 50% chance of development. And none of them are super organized right now, but again, we're going to have to watch the Atlantic closely over the next week besides Gabrielle. In the Eastern Pacific, things actually quieting down a little bit in terms of overall convection, because if you remember the last several days, and especially the last several weeks, the Pacific would be very, very active when it comes to overall convection here in the Pacific. And again, that's because of the MJO, which has moved through and is what's helped spark activity in the Pacific over the last several weeks, and is now sparking activity in the Atlantic with Gabrielle, and potentially more to come after that, as I've showed you. But we are tracking Nardia, which is formed off the southwest coast of Mexico, producing some convection right now. And this is close enough that I'd assume we'll probably get some impacts to the Mexican coastline in terms of heavy rain, especially in some of these outer bands. But we will not have a direct landfall on Mexico. Good thing, obviously. But maybe some gusty winds, maybe a few tropical storm watches even as well. But this will eventually bend off here to the west and eventually turn away from the Mexican coastline. But it will become a hurricane, so we're likely to have another hurricane here in the Pacific, going to add to the tally of what has been a pretty decently active hurricane season in the Pacific so far. And from also some of the models that I've seen, at least from what I saw with the GFS yesterday, and we'll look at the GFS in the Pacific for Nardia in a little bit, but maybe this might also be another pretty decently strong storm in the Pacific to track among the multiple strong storms that are currently taking place in the Pacific right now, especially in the Western Pacific with typhoons Ragasa and Neoguri, which I went over yesterday. And looks like this is going to add on to the amount of strong storms we are tracking in the Eastern Pacific. And to give you an alternate view of how things are right now, here's the 850 millibar vorticity map. I show this pretty much every single video, especially when we have quite a few things to monitor. And this really puts into perspective the amount of energy storms or waves might have, and kind of gives a good look at whether or not something might even have a chance to develop. And you can see very clearly the very bundled vorticity that we see with Gabrielle. Obviously, since it is a tropical cyclone, and just pointing it out because this is the kind of vorticity signature that we look at when we are seeing or monitoring or watching to see for tropical cyclone development. Very round and also very potent in terms of the amount of vorticity it has. And you also see a potent vorticity signature here off the southwest coast of Mexico. That is Nardia. And then you also have these pieces of energy here in the MDR, both of them being the waves that we're monitoring over the next several days. And I want to show you now with the models, looks like they might actually have a chance. And I'll show you here with the Google Ensemble model. This has been the most aggressive model in terms of development out of all of the models that we've had so far. And the Google AI model seemingly develops both areas here off the southeast coast and also just north of the islands here. So both of the areas of interest that the National Hurricane Center have tagged the Google AI model is aggressive on, but it's especially aggressive on this area here just north of the islands that kind of remains very close to Bermuda. And I think that's the 50% chance area that the National Hurricane Center currently has tagged. So lots of activity that's going to happen here over the next several weeks, and it's been about time coming. It was going to happen eventually, even if it was going to happen very late, like seemingly it's going to happen for this year. It was still going to happen eventually, and this model run does go out to 15 days, so pretty much 2 weeks. But you do notice that even beyond then, we also start getting more activity, even stuff coming out of the MDR in October, and also, once again, potentially watching for some development to occur here in the Southwest Caribbean, although I think that has kind of shifted to something occurring more in the Bahamas and right off the southeast coast. And the European, on the other hand, too, is also showing that, especially with the area here, kind of near Bermuda, just north of the islands, again, associated with the 50% chance area. So getting some agreement between the Google AI and the European model of definitely some development occurring in the Atlantic after Gabrielle. So again, that definitely says that we need to be watching the Atlantic closely here over the next several weeks. Um, but we'll see exactly what happens in terms of which area develops. Looks like maybe there might be a little bit of a competition between these two waves, but again, both of the models have signals, and you have to start with the signals in terms of what the models are showing, and not just the ensembles of the Google AI and the European, but also looks like the GFS operational too is starting to come on board. Obviously, we have Gabrielle here, which strengthens and becomes, it is already a hurricane, but it continues to strengthen as a hurricane as it passes just to the east and then eventually away from Bermuda. Although I will say that this will be something that we need to watch closely for the Azores, as they might be impacted as well. And the Azores, there is population on those chain of islands. They're, somewhat forgotten people because they are in the middle of the northeastern Atlantic Ocean. Nobody really talks about them, but there will be impacts that Gabrielle will have on the Azores, and even still some impacts, minor impacts that might be felt to Bermuda, even as this will not make a direct impact on Bermuda. But then eventually that moves off to the northeast, and then our focus then shifts right off the southeast coast. And don't want to make any predictions or get too hyped up right now, but I will say, by the looks of the 12Z GFS, whatever develops here in the southwestern Atlantic looks like, because of where development occurs, I think this is the 20% chance area that the National Hurricane Center highlighted. But either way, I will say, at least on the 12Z GFS, whatever develops here does get pretty awfully close to the East Coast. Passes barely just off the coast of the Outer Banks here on the 12Z run of the GFS. And I say that because things can change, and this is 7 days out. A lot. There's always a lot that can change in 7 days, which is why I would not be too crazy about whatever the GFS shows yet. But it's three models. It's the Google AI, it's the European that's showing, at least the European ensembles, and let's see if the European operational has something occurring as well. Yes, they do, although it seems like the European operational ends up forming the other wave here that's further to the east. So it's going to be a little bit of a competition that happens here in terms of what does try to develop and what doesn't develop here. So again, lots to keep on top of over the next week. And then really quickly, before I want to end things off, I want to show you here what happens in the Pacific. Obviously, we have Nardia, and the good news is, again, this will track away from the Mexican coastline, but it will become a pretty powerful hurricane as it moves off to the west and northwest into the open waters of the Eastern Pacific. Now, let's actually see just how strong it gets here on the GFS. 957 millibars. So GFS looks like it brings this into a hurricane, or brings this to major hurricane intensity, and then that's around a week out, and then something else also develops here just off the coast of Mexico. So looks like the gravy train of activity too in the Eastern Pacific as well will continue then. So lots to keep on top of over the next week or so. And again, as I've said, that it was going to happen eventually, even as things were slow throughout most of the month of September. Surprisingly, It was only a matter of time before that would come to an end and things would begin to ramp up. And it looks like finally that is beginning to happen now, especially with Gabrielle becoming the second hurricane of the season, and is probably not going to be the last. I can tell you that almost, at least, almost for sure. But that's going to do it for today's video. Hope you enjoyed what you saw today. Hope this video was informative. Make sure to enjoy the rest of your weekend, and especially enjoy the rest of your Holy Sunday, since Sunday is usually the holy day. At least if that's what you believe in. But even if not, enjoy the rest of your Sunday and enjoy the rest of your end to the weekend. And also enjoy the rest of your upcoming week, which we will be having videos throughout the entire week. As again, I do these videos every single day, so make sure to stay tuned for those. Until then, have a good night.